Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Namo Shri Radha Madhava Ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today's verse is Yata Bhuta Pritagbhavam Ekastam Anupashyati Tada Eva Chavistaram Brahma Sampadyate Tada. What does it mean? Yada? What does it mean, Yada? How about Yada Yada Hidharmasya? Yada
Wherever and whenever.
Yeah, when. Yada means when. Yada Bhuta. What is a Bhuta? The living entity. What is Bhava? No, Mad Bhava Madhigachati. He attains my nature. Pritag Bhava. Pritag Bhava means separate nature. Yata Bhuta Pritag Bhavam Eka Stam. What is Sthana? Stam. Sthana. It is a place. Eka Stam. It means situated in one. What does it mean, Pashyati? Like Afghanistan, exactly. 1331. 31. Pashyati means to see. Anupashyati. What does it mean, anu? Like anukampana. Like rupa anuga. Rupa anuga. Rupa anuga means yeah. All the devotees, all of us, we are Rupa Anugas. We are followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. So Anuga means in the line of spiritual authority. So Anupashyati means seeing through the vision of the authorities, seeing through the authorities. One tries to see through authorities. Tada eva means therefore. Cha means also. Vistaram is expansion. Brahma, the absolute. Sampadyate, he attains. Tada means that, close, at that time. We don't have the verse on the board, but we will repeat it a few times together. So the first line goes, Yata Bhuta Pritag Bhavam. Yata Bhuta Pritag Bhavam. Yata Bhuta Pritag Bhavam. Somebody wants to try? 1331. Somebody want to try the first line? Prabhu? Yata Bhuta Pritag Bhavam. Eka Stam Anupashyati. Eka Stam Anupashyati. Eka Stam, situated in one place. Anupashyati, trying to see through the authorities. Through the authorities. ekastam anupashyati. Tada eva cha vistaram. Tada eva cha vistaram. Brahma sampadyate tada. Yeah, Brahma sampadyate tada. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Tulas Maharani ki jai. Short purport. When one can see that the various bodies of all living entities arise due to the different desires of the individual soul and not actually belonging to the soul itself, one actually sees. In the material conception of life, we find someone, a demigod, someone a human being, a dog, a cat, etc. This is material vision, not actual vision. This material differentiation is due to the material concept of life. After the destruction of the material body, the spiritual soul is one. The spiritual soul, due to the contact with the material nature, gets different types of bodies. When one can see this, he attains spiritual vision, thus being freed from differentiation like man, animal, big, low, etc. One becomes purified in his consciousness and able to develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. How he then sees things will be explained in the next verse. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupah Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adigora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. What is few questions is Purusha and Kshetrajna, is it same? Purusha and Kshetrajna, is it same? Okay. Is Prakriti and Kshetra same? Is the Kshetra and Prakriti the same? Prakriti. Mm-hmm. Does Prakriti contains kshetra? Does kshetra contains prakriti? No. What is the difference between kshetra gnya and purusha? Quantity. What is purusha? What is kshetra gnya? Knower of the field. Kshetra is the field. So these are some terms that are brought up in the 13th chapter. And the 13th chapter begins with, basically today we will just go through the 13th chapter overall. So the 13th chapter begins with the question of Arjuna. He asks 5 different questions. He is asking Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Kshetram Kshetrajnam Eva Cha Etad Veditum Etad Dis Veditum Ichami. Ichami, I have a desire. Veditum, I have a desire to know this. Jnanam Jneyam Chakeshava. These are the 6 things I wish to know. So these are some very technical terms. And then Krishna goes on explaining, saying that, oh, Rishibir Bahuda Gita, that the rishis, Bahuda, in many ways Gita, they have explained this. Chandobir Vividai Pritak, that even in the great Upanishads, in the great Vedic scriptures, these terms are explained over there. Very interesting that Krishna is referring to the Vedic scriptures. And Krishna, he is the authority of the Vedas, and yet he puts the Vedas above himself, in a sense that he is showing the example how what a big importance does the Vedas do in our lives. And then he goes on explaining so there are 6 questions. Prakriti, what is Prakriti? What is Purusha? What is Kshetra? And what is Kshetrajna? So Kshetra, for the Kshetra, he answers first. Krishna says, Kshetra, the field, is this material body. And the Kshetrajna, the knower of the body, is the soul. Who? Tilak. Jiva. The soul, and that's the second question, is the Purusha. The knower of the body is the soul, and the Paramatma, yes. Yeah. And the difference between the two, the soul knows only this body. You know the pain, the desire, and everything of this one body, whereas the super soul knows all the bodies. And I just want to praise some of my, some of the devotees over here, seeing them. Shri Shri Prahlad Lakshman Simhadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. Just seeing them since very long time on regular basis, reading Bhagavad Gita daily, reading Srimad Bhagavatam daily, and I've been doing today something with my Visa card, and so with Mahodaya I am in the room, and so you can think about Paramatma like the Visa card. The card, you have your specific number, that's the Jiva, but it is functioning through the same bank. It has the same connection, our connection is the same, and that's the super soul. So that's the Kshetra and Kshetrajnam. And then from verses 8 till 12, knowledge is described. And how is knowledge defined in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? What is knowledge? Humility. That comes in the 12th chapter. Those are verses. No, this is 16, 1, 2. These are the divine and demoniac qualities. But you are right, we are talking about qualities. And as Akila Prabhu said, this is, yeah. Exactly. So these are the 23 qualities, divine qualities. Is it 23, I guess, or 21? And in the 13th chapter, 26 qualities are described. And these 26 qualities beginning with, as Akila Prabhu said, humility, tolerance, non-violence, cleanliness, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, and so on.
There's a series on, Siddhanta Prabhu just released, from Prabhupada Memories, from TV, just released a short series on that, 26 qualities of the lifetime journey. So if anyone wants to have a look at the class.
Prabhu, I guess you're more excited than myself, like you should be sitting here. It is... So a list of 26 qualities are given within these few verses, and the definition of knowledge is actually the cultivation of these good qualities. And the link between why this is a difference between the modern science and the Vedic approach. In the Vedic times, how is it? The body is kshetra. The knower of the body is the kshetrajna. It is the soul and the super soul. And knowing these two is actually the object of knowledge. Yeah. And then a person can actually have a knowledge, can differentiate between the body and the soul by cultivating those divine good qualities one have. And then after, the object of knowledge is described. These are verses 13 all the way till 19. And the Paramatma is described as one who has Sarvata Panipadam Tat Sarvato Kshi Shiromukham Sarvata Shrutimal Loke Sarvam Avritya Tishtati. That, this super soul, he has eyes everywhere, he has ears everywhere. He is far away, but he is also close. He is like the ultimate CIA. And this is the point where the Mayavadis say that, look, the knower of the body is the soul, and see, this soul has eyes everywhere, this soul has ears everywhere, and this is how they interpretate the verses of Bhagavad Gita. They refer to this part. And after that, And after that, the terms, we explained what is kshetra, the body, kshetra gnya, the knower of the body, and now new terms are introduced. Krishna is answering the other questions. He is speaking about prakriti and he is speaking about purusha. Prakriti means nature, material nature, and material nature contains the kshetra. And what is a purusha? God. In the context of 13th chapter, purusha refers to the enjoyer, and here the purusha refers to the living entity, to the soul, not to the paramatma. It refers to the soul that has the desire to enjoy, to lord over the material nature, and because of it, he is bound to this material nature. So the kshetra gnya refers to the soul and the super soul who knows the body, and purusha refers to the soul with the desire to enjoy the body. And Arjuna is basically asking the question that what is the difference between these, like you can be kshetra gnya, but you can also be a purusha. You can be a living entity with a desire to enjoy this material nature, but you can also be a living entity who knows this body. And because of it, Arjuna puts up these questions. And the question for all of you, what is the connection between the living entity, jiva, and the prakriti, the material nature? How are these two things bound to one another? The living entity is bound to the material nature by? The material body is the material nature. The senses, for example, like the moon affects our mind. In that context, yes. But in other ways, how is the living entity connected to the material nature? Exactly. The living entity is bound to the material nature through the false ego, because of the false ego, the soul identifies himself with the body or with the mind, and just to bring some. There is one verse in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Yoga Sutra. This is in the 2nd chapter, verse 23. It says that Swaswami Shakya Swarupo Palabdi Hetu Samyogaha. And the simple way of explaining this verse is imagine having a mirror. And imagine this mirror represents actually the mind. So you need to have a mirror and you need to have an object that is looking into the mirror. And when there is an object, not an object, a subject. So there is an object, there is a mirror, and there is one who looks in a mirror. And by looking into the mirror, you can understand the nature of the mirror itself. You can understand the nature of the mind, the nature of the mirror. It reflects. And you can also understand the nature of the subject. You can also understand, oh, this is how I look like when I look in a mirror. So it takes a mirror and it takes a subject to understand the nature of both the mirror and of the subject. Swami means one who is owning, and swa is something that is being owned. So the mind is being owned by the soul, by the Swami. Swami Shakya. Shakya means the power. The mirror has its powers and the soul has its powers. And both of them are unlimited, actually. Swami Shakya, Swarupo Upalabdi, Svarupa means the form. Svarupa Palabdhi Hetu Samyoga. Samyoga means the connection. Once you start looking into a mirror and thinking that you actually see yourself, that is called ignorance. Because you are not someone who is being seen. The living entity within the soul is not someone who is being seen. We are actually the seers. We are the one we are the one who actually see. We are the observer within the body. And by taking the subject and the object, putting it together, and the powers, the natures of the both are so similar that you start confusing the two. And whoa, that becomes a problem. That becomes a problem. Interesting, very interesting. And when a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. And we are coming close to the end of the class and to the end of the 13th chapter. And the 13th chapter is actually Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, the last verse, he says, yes, the purport of the 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner, the body, kshetra, the owner of the body, the kshetrajna, and the super soul. The super soul is also a kshetrajna. One should recognize the process of liberation as described in a verse 8 through 12. Verses 8 to 12 are the qualities of the definition of knowledge. Humility, tolerance, and this is the process. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. And one more interesting point is I have to look which verse it is. 1 second. Oh yeah. Okay, these are verses 23 and 24, saying that although the super soul is within the same body, the super soul doesn't get entangled. The super soul is, you can think about a soul as, imagine yourself going to Japan. Do you speak Japanese? Okay, Chinese? No. Chinese is more difficult for you than Japanese. Okay, then imagine going to China. You go there. How do you communicate with people if they don't speak English? Body language. Mandarin. Huh? Mandarin. Cell phone. Yes. So practical, yes. You take a cell phone, you go on Google Translate, and you write it in English and he translates it in Chinese, isn't it? So the living entity coming to this world is like us going to China. It's so foreign to us. So foreign to us. And we are like hungry, we want to express some desire, but we cannot, we don't know how to communicate, so we need a translator, and that translator is actually the Paramatma. The Paramatma is constantly translating all the data from this world to the living entity. And the Paramatma is neutral, and then there is the living entity which is called Purusha, with the desire to enjoy, and the main link to the matter and the main cause of entanglement with it is because of the ego, because of the identifying oneself with the matter. And the thing is that the living entity can become a kshetrajna by cultivating the good qualities, and in that way one can actually be like the Paramatma, who is within this world but he is of this world. The living entity can also be living in this world, but he can be not affected by this world. And that's 13th chapter in a complicated way. Yeah. Any questions or comments? No question means everybody understood everything or nobody understood nothing. Yes. Grantarad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol.